everybody, my name is Kim and welcome back to my channel, Bookmarks and Breadsticks, channel all about food books, and a reminder, food books are not cookbooks. Other fun reminders, Black lives still matter. We should also be supporting our independent bookstores and our small bookstores, everything in general. My cat is currently scratching on its scratching post that I use as my tripod right now. So I'm gonna keep those camera shakes in and see how you feel. So if you're new to my channel, I focus on everything food books. That includes everything from the history of corn to food and travel. Think someone like Anthony Bourdain. And I am here today with a book review. This book is called Fluff, and it is going to be part of my Sweet Series playlist. And here is my cat again, scratching on the scratching post I use as a tripod. Okay, so Fluff, sorry, I've already forgotten her name. Fluff is by Mimi Graney. So Fluff, the sticky sweet story of an American icon. The icon is Fluff, if you haven't figured that out already. So, what is Fluff? Fluff is essentially a creamed marshmallow that became famous in America because of the infamous Fluffenutter sandwich. A Fluffenutter sandwich is a combination of peanut butter, and fluff. Fluffenutter, did we put it all together? My sister growing up was obsessed with Fluff. Like, she would eat it by the spoon and I just could not stomach it at all. Which is funny because I actually really like marshmallows. So Mimi is actually the founder of a festival called What the Fluff. And it started out as a joke to bring, she wanted to revitalize the town that she was part of. Union Square in this area was about to lose itself to gentrification. Old buildings were going to be torn down and new condos were going to be put up. So Mimi was looking for a reason to tell people that her town was amazing. And one of the things that was amazing was this town has the history of fluff. So originally Fluff started as a companion to hot chocolate. So when did hot chocolate become famous in America? It actually became a trend very early on in American history because it was a beverage meant to be an alternative to tea. So you remember like the Boston Tea Party, we didn't want to be taxed for tea. Well, to protest, we started drinking hot chocolate. And hot chocolate at the time was really just melted chocolate, like melted cacao in a hot water. So not the most delicious thing. It didn't have all the artificial sugars and packets that we think of nowadays. So people started to use fluff or creamed marshmallows as a topping. So that's some of where this book goes into. I also thought I would read for you what's on the back. History was never so sweet. At the turn of the 20th century, Boston was a booming candy town. Of all the tantalizing treats, nothing has stuck around like marshmallow fluff. Since that time, the small, family-run company, Durkee Mower, has churned out a century of fluff with the secretive air of Willy Wonka. From Fluffenutters to fudge, little has made of its extraordinary legacy until now. To author Mimi Graney, the mastermind behind the offbeat What the Fluff, like I just mentioned, festival, fluff is far more than a retro ingredient in a sugary sandwich or dessert. It is a story about the merits and pitfalls of adaptation and innovation. Graney definitely brings the factory floor to life, weaving a fascinating narrative about New England's forgotten candy industry, changing social roles for women, the advent of commercial radio and modern advertising, and the evolution of how we buy our food today. Fluff has survived 2 world wars, corporate attacks, nutrition battles, and the rise and fall of manufacturing towns. The world has changed around it, yet Fluff remains the same, achieving an enviable status of American icon. So, a lot packed in there on the back of the book. The book itself is a little less than 200 pages, and what I really liked about it is that all of the old advertisements, she references them here in the book. I love when I can actually see what they're talking about, some full page black and whites, and I think it's really important. I work in food marketing, so this is my bread and butter, this is how I pay the bills, but I really love when a writer acknowledges how important marketing was to the survival of a product. So Fluff went through a lot of different changes. Like one of the examples was that in 1919, to win the war, Fluff actually was supplied to the military. They made candies, and then eventually the military was where some of the innovation comes from. How Fluff moved from a glass jar, it started more in a tin to a glass jar, into this more plastic iconic jar we know today. The book also goes into how Kraft Heinz, this mega super company, which yes, I used to work for, came in and tried to make a copycat of this, because Fluff really is dominated by the New England area. It is sold nationwide, it's sold internationally, but if you're from the New England area or Boston, you love Fluff. And Kraft tried to come in and steal their own market share, and Kraft wasn't willing to really invest in it, so Fluff beat down a titan. It's one of the few that still exists today. I also love in the book how she talks about the What the Fluff Festival and brought back something known as the Fluffettes girls. So the Fluffettes, excuse me. So the Fluffettes are like can dance girls that have been around since World War I, and it was just these ways that women started to push their way into advertising. I mean, it might not have been the most glamorous thing, but when radio was one of the biggest parts that made Fluff successful. The owners had the foresight to invest in the first radio commercials ever. Or this news hour is sponsored in part by the parent company and Fluff, and they started to make jingles. And when TV started to show up, that the Fluff girls, the Fluffettes, excuse me, were still around. So the Fluffettes would come in and sing, like they'd buy an hour of radio time, and the Fluffettes would sing commercials and songs, and they had a radio host. And it was a really fun time. I had no idea that Fluff had such an interesting history in the United States. Again, I never grew up really eating it. My sister did. And it's one of those items that's on the shelf down the peanut butter and jelly aisle, but it's so easy to overlook. It was a really fun read. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It's really hard for me to give out 5s. Other fun fact I love about this book is they talked about, early sugar. How did we start to build candy in the United States? It used to be that if you were a candy maker, you were an artist, and men were not looked down on for being good at sugar working, sugar pulling, making taffies, making caramels, which is really interesting because later in life, baking, pastry, that's really more associated with a female's role. But the original candy artists, the candy craftsmen, they were small businesses. They were considered very skilled. Skilled like a blacksmith is skilled. So I thought that was a fun fact. Another fun fact was that, I don't remember what year it was, there was a molasses massacre, also known as the Molassacre. I thought this was a joke. My fiance was sitting next to me listening to a new album by some band, the name totally escapes me, and he knew about the Molassacre. So what happened was there used to be this, in Boston, we're talking old colonial Boston, before railroads, all that stuff, think horse carriage. There was a 4-story container that held molasses, and it burst, and it covered the town with molasses. Could you imagine, instead of like a tsunami of water, you're just looking and you have a slow death with a wave of sticky molasses? Like it tore down it killed people, it tore buildings off the ground. And then because it was cold out, the molasses solidified. So the fire departments had to pump seawater because it had salt and power blast against this hardened molasses to chip away to find the bodies and the horses and the people. Like, could you imagine, like, what a way to go. Like, my great-great-great-great-grandfather died in the Molassacre. What did your grandfather do? Like, what a weird fun fact. And the fact that a band came out with an album that references the Molassacre is also super strange and also a weird fun fact. But I will try and link and figure out what that band was. I'll go talk to him after I'm done filming. So anyway, Fluff by Mimi Grainer, 4 out of 5 stars. I super love it. I would love for you guys to like and subscribe below. I'm really hoping to hit 100 subscribers by the end of summer. As of this morning, I think I'm at 70, so we're almost there. I'll continue to link all of the Black Lives Matter resources in my comments below, in the description box below. Sorry. And also links on where you can purchase Fluff. I actually had to get it through biblio.com. And more soon. I'm hoping to film a bunch of videos back to back. I got a lot of reading done, and I hope I see you in the next video. Thanks.